Alright, boys and girls, today we're going to go a little 3D on you. Now, if you have a pair of 3D glasses at home, now would be a good time to put them on. If you don't have a pair of 3D glasses, I suggest covering your one eye with your left hand and maybe using a toilet paper roll to use your right eye to watch this lesson. Okay, so this lesson is going to deal with finding volumes of familiar solids. So we're on lesson 10, page 42 in your book. So go ahead and turn to that page. And in fact, we're going to look on the left side of that page where it's nice and blank, and you're going to take down some notes before we begin. So go ahead and find page 42, and then look at the left side of that page. Okay, so to give a little bit of background to finding volume of familiar solids, we got to deal with a couple two-dimensional issues. So some of these you should already be familiar with. So the first one, go ahead and draw a rectangle. And we know a rectangle has a length and a width. And to find the area of a rectangle, you just take your length times your width. Okay, again, something you should probably already know. So we're going to be using that in today's lesson to help find volumes of rectangular prisms. Another thing we need to discuss is a circle. Now, go ahead and draw a circle. And we also need to know what is the radius. Now, the radius is from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle. That is your radius. And try not to get that confused with the diameter. The diameter goes from one edge of the circle through the center to the other edge of the circle. Okay? And one of the things that you should realize is that it takes two radiuses to equal diameter. Or in other words, if you have the diameter, the radius is a half. So if I had the following circle, and I had a diameter of 20, the radius is actually 10. Or if I had a circle and the diameter was 15, the radius would be 7.5. Okay? So, one of the things that we need to know about a circle as we move forward in our lesson is what is the area of a circle. So, if I had a circle and I knew its radius, the area of a circle is pi r squared. Okay, so we just take whatever the radius is, square it, multiply it by pi, or leave pi as is. We'll talk more about that later on. So just a couple items to think about as we move forward in this lesson. So let's go ahead and look at page 42 now. Oops. And here we have a rectangular prism, and we want to be able to find the volume of this rectangular prism. Okay, so in order to find the volume, I first need to find the bottom area, or the base area, so this area here. And you notice what shape that is. That is the shape of a rectangle. So I'm going to use my length times my width first. So volume equals length times width, so that's going to be 8 times 6. So volume equals 48. Now, that only gives me the area of this section in here. To find a volume, I need to remember, I need to stack these rectangles all the way up so that they fill this entire prism. So to know how many of these guys I've got to stack up, well, I've got to multiply it by our h, which is height. Okay? So in our original formula, it's going to be volume equals length times width times height. And again, some of you might already be familiar with that. So let's go ahead and take a look at number 2. So again, my volume is going to be my length times my width times my height, which is also my base area. So it's another way of looking at it. So you could say volume equals your base times your height, or your base area times your height. So what is our base? Well, our base is 10 times 8. So volume equals 10 times 8 times h, or volume equals 80 h. Okay, go ahead and do number 3 on your own real quick. Hit pause. Alright, so volume equals length times width times height, or base area times height. So volume equals 6 times 4 times h, or volume equals 24h. Okay, very good. All right, now let's take a look at a cylinder. Okay, so this is like what a soup can would look like, sometimes a glass. This is what we're talking about, a big oil tanker. Here we have a cylinder. And what you should notice is that the cylinder is made up of a circle on the bottom with a height. So in order to find the volume of this, we need to find our base area. So again, volume would be base area times height. Oops, sorry. So again, this is a circle, and we talked about that in the previous page, that the area of a circle is pi r squared. So now look at our base area, our base circle, which is right here. And did they give us the radius or the diameter? Well, this 4 represents the radius. So volume equals pi r squared times h, because this is our base area. So volume equals pi r squared, so that's 4 squared times h, or volume equals 16 pi h. So we'll just leave pi as pi right now. We're not going to multiply it by 3.14 at this particular point in time. So this would be our volume of this cylinder. Again, we're going to take our base area, which is pi r squared, and then multiply it by our height. And this time we don't know what height is, so we just have to leave it as h. So down here at the bottom of page 43, you can see what they come up with is the volume of our prism. And the volume of the prism is whatever the area of the base is, which is down here. So in this case it would be length times width times whatever the height of our prism is. And again, if this was a cylinder, we would find the area of our base, which would be pi r squared, and multiply it by our height. Okay, so let's take a look at the bottom of page 44, kind of where it says MP8. You can kind of see that over here. Okay, let's just answer a couple quick questions about finding the prisms. So what is the general formula for finding the volume of a prism? Well, like we said before, the general formula is our base area times our height. So it says, what is the area for the base of a circular cylinder? Well, area of the base is going to be pi r squared. Again, we're talking about a cylinder which has circles at the top and bottom. What information do we need to find from the area of the circle? Well, you definitely need to know the radius, and please do not get confused with the diameter. Okay? Think about it as the diameter is a longer word, so the diameter goes all the way across. Radius is a shorter word, it's half of the diameter. What would be the volume of a right circular prism? So the volume of a right circular prism is going to be volume equals our base area, which is pi r squared, times our height. And what information is needed to find the volume of a right circular prism? Of course, we need to know the radius and the height. Okay? So let's go ahead and try a few of these. So go ahead and turn to page 45 right now. Okay, so looking at page 134, we're just going to go through a couple of quick examples. So over here on the right, we have a rectangular prism. And what is the volume formula for the volume of a rectangular prism? Well, volume equals our base area times our height. And of course, our base area would be length, times width. Okay, so we need to find our base area. Well, what two dimensions or what numerical values do we have for our dimensions? Well, length and width. So to find volume, we need to take 4. I believe that's a 5 times 8.2. And when you do 4.5 times 8.2, you get 36.9. So that would be the area of the base. And then what is the height? Well, the height is 11.7. So what is the volume? Well, volume equals base area times height. So volume is going to be 36.9 times 11.7, which of course equals 431.73 inches cubed. Okay, it's cubed because we're talking about something three-dimensional. If you're still looking through your toilet paper holder, you'll notice that it is definitely still three-dimensional. Okay, use the diagram on the right to answer the following question. So again, here we're dealing with a cylinder. So we need to find the base area. And the base area is pi r squared. And do they give us the radius or the diameter? Well, it's only halfway across, so this of course is our radius, so we're in good shape there. So the area of our base is going to be pi r squared, which equals pi times radius, so it's 2 to the second power, which equals pi times 4, but I know that just sounds weird, so I'm just going to say 4 pi as the area of our base. What is the height in this case? Well, the height is 5.3. So what is the volume? Well, volume is going to be base area times height. And the base area we said was 4 pi, which times our height, which is 5.3. So you can multiply your 5.3 times your 4 to get volume equals 21.2 pi. And again, we'll just leave this as pi. If you wanted to make this 3.14, well, then you would take 3.14 times 21.2, be somewhere in the 60s. Oops, forgot my centimeters cubed. Okay. All right, go ahead and try number 3 on your own. Just be careful here. Do you have the radius or the diameter? So go ahead and hit pause, see if you can go ahead and do this, or you can go ahead and fill in as I fill in as well. All right, so area is pi r squared. Here they're giving us the diameter is 12. Therefore, my radius is really 6. So the area will be pi times 6 squared, or the area is 36 pi. What is the height? The height is 25 inches. So the volume will be 36 pi, which is my base area, times my height, which is 25. And again, you can multiply 36 and 25 to get a volume of 900 pi inches cubed. Okay, hopefully you got that one correct. All right, moving on. Okay, take a look at page 48. And one of the things you should notice, now we're dealing with a cone. And again, it's almost like an ice cream cone or something like that. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the materials necessary to show you how to come up with this formula, but just something to keep in mind. If I had a cylinder of a certain height and a certain radius, and then I had a cone of the same height and the same radius. If I were to take this cylinder and fill it up with sand, marbles, whatever, this cone, and then take this cylinder and dump it into this cone, only a third of whatever is in this cylinder will fit into this cone. So whatever the formula is for the cylinder, which is which is volume equals pi r squared h, only a third of it would fit in here. So that would be volume equals a third of your cone formula. Of your cylinder formula. So it would be pi r squared h. Okay, so again, with a cone of the same radius and the same height of a cylinder, only is able to hold a third of that volume. Okay, so you're basically just using the same formula as a cylinder. The difference is you're now taking a third of it. So let's take a look at number 4 here. So again, we want to find the volume, or we want to find the area, the base area here of the circle. So area equals pi r squared, or area equals pi times 4 squared, or area equals 16 pi. Now, to find the volume, remember, it's going to be 1/3 the formula for our cylinder. So 1/3 times our base area, which is 16 pi, times our height, which is 9. Okay, so you could take a calculator, you can multiply all of this out. 1/3 times 9 times 16, or when you enter that all into the calculator, you get 48 pi millimeters cubed. Okay, 1/3 of 9 is 3. 3 times 16 is 48, or again, if you enter all that into the calculator, 1/3 times 16 times 9 does in fact equal 48. Alright, take a look at number 5. Again, same thing. So let's just write out the entire formula. This is what you need to know. Volume equals 1/3 times pi r squared times our height. So you can see here's our cylinder formula, but we need to take 1/3 of that to get the volume of our cone. So go ahead and work on that while I come up with the answer as well. Check your answers in a minute. Okay, so when you see our final answer is 26.45 pi meters cubed. So again, all I did was I multiplied 1/3 times 2.3, don't forget your exponent of 2, times 15, enter all that into the calculator, you get 26.45 times pi. Please do not forget your pi. If you forget your pi, it is wrong. Meters cubed. Okay, so this time I'd like you to go back to the original page, the original blank page that we were working on, which is right at the beginning of this lesson. And so just use the bottom half of the paper and just write down the three formulas that we learned today. So volume. So if you want to, you can quickly draw a prism. So the volume of a prism is volume equals length times width times height, or volume equals base area times height. And then if you want to quickly draw a cylinder, it's a very bad cylinder, and the volume of this is volume equals pi r squared times h, or again, volume equals base area times h. And then finally our cone. Here, volume equals 1/3 times pi r squared times h, or volume equals 1/3 times base area times height. So these are your three formulas that you need to know for these three rectangular prisms. Again, mainly base area times height. Just be sure that you're using the radius and not the diameter. Okay? So that ends today's lesson. Next thing you'll be looking at is spheres. So, alright, good luck. Please listen to your teacher's instructions for what you're supposed to do for homework. Please keep these formulas handy as you move forward into doing this homework. Okay? At this time, you can now take down your toilet paper roll that you were using to look at these 3D images. Alright, have a good night.